Now, most movies are driven by their relationship between their characters, the bonds, the feuds, and yes, the lies. Characters all have their own vested interests and means for doing what they do, for better or worse, and heroes and villains alike have willfully twisted the truth to service their own agenda time and time again, and this can often be set up to deliver a turn of events that leaves the viewer stunned with shock or simply provides an added complexion to the hero's journey. But because revealing a character to be duplicitous totally out of nowhere can feel rather lazy and manipulative, smart filmmakers will often sow some seeds throughout the film leading up to this moment. And that's what we're here to talk about today. As I'm Jules, this is Whatculture.com, and these are 10 subtle signs that movie characters weren't telling the truth.
Want to stay safe online and save big? Get up to 76% off a 2-year NordVPN plan, plus 4 months free and up to a $50 Amazon gift card. Just scan the QR code or click the link in the description and it's all yours.
Number 10. Elsa cries at the book burning. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade eventually reveals that Indy's love interest Elsa is actually secretly in league with the Nazis in an attempt to get her hands on the Holy Grail. At the end of the movie, when it comes to selecting the correct Holy Grail cup, villain Walter Donovan allows Elsa, an art professor, to pick the right one. But moments after drinking from said cup, Donovan withers to dust as Elsa intentionally gave him the wrong cup in an attempt to secure the actual Holy Grail for herself. Throughout the movie, there are some clear signs leading up to Elsa's betrayal of Donovan and lack of affinity for the Nazis beyond simply just being a means to an end for her. Most notably, at the Nazi book burning in Berlin, Spielberg focuses on Elsa tearfully watching it all unfold, which, while interpreted as solemn joy by some, is really indicative that she hates what they're doing and is playing along for her own interests. With that in mind, it shouldn't be terribly surprising that she deliberately picks the wrong cup for Donovan. Number 9. JD speaks German. Heathers. In the classic black comedy Heathers, Veronica is seduced by the rebellious new outsider at her school, JD, who hatches a plan to humiliate bullies Kurt and Ram. The plan? Well, it's to lure them into the woods, shoot them both with tranquilizers, and stage the scene to look like they were lovers taking part in a suicide pact. Crucially, JD tells Veronica that the bullets are Ich Lüge bullets, which his grandfather acquired during World War II, which break the skin when fired but cause no lasting harm. But if you know your German, you might know that Ich lüge, which translates to I lie, indicating that JD is being dishonest about the bullet's true nature. Hell, before JD even talks about the bullets, he asks Veronica if she takes German, presumably to ensure that she won't immediately see through his rather playful little ruse. She replies that she studies French, so he's all good. And so, as it turns out, the bullets indeed aren't tranquilizers, they're real bullets, resulting in JD and Veronica straight up killing Kurt and Ram. Number 8. Howard Clifford's false prophet Pokemon, Detective Pikachu. Midway through Detective Pikachu, Pikachu, played by Ryan Reynolds, and Tim Goodman meet up with Howard Clifford, who claims that his son Roger is secretly behind the increasingly nefarious happenings in the city. But it's later revealed that Howard has been spinning a yarn and is in fact the real villain himself, a fact which more eagle-eyed Pokemon fans might have had an inkling of the moment that Pikachu and Tim first stepped foot in his office. As they enter the dimly lit office, Pikachu and Tim find an Eevee on Howard's desk, which he quickly evolves into a Flareon. But in Pokemon lore, the Flareon is also known as a false prophet, and so its presence in Howard's office provides a sly hint that he isn't quite the benevolent individual that he presents himself as. Hell, even if you don't catch the quick glimpse of the Flareon, Pikachu literally says, "Whoa, a Flareon," just to hammer home the point. All the same, if you're not swatted up on your Pokemon mythology, it is rather easily missed. Number 7. Aladdin's telltale feather. Aladdin. So Aladdin uses his first wish from the genie to be transformed into a prince with the hope of romancing Jasmine, and so Aladdin maintains the facade of Prince Ali Ababwa while introducing himself to her. His prince outfit includes a large purple feather in his hat, which actually betrays his dishonesty every time that he lies to Jasmine about his true identity. Seriously, just watch whenever he says something untrue about himself to her, and you'll see the feather suddenly flops down in front of his face, slyly indicating that he's a fraud. When he tells Jasmine that he has servants to go to the marketplace for him and dresses as a commoner to escape the pressures of everyday life, the feather falls down, and again, when he says "I'm really a prince" to an increasingly skeptical Jasmine, the feather refuses to stand up straight. Of course, we as the audience are under no illusion of Aladdin's ruse, but it nevertheless feels like the feather itself is trying to give Jasmine a hint that she isn't really speaking with a prince. Number 6. Myella Ule hovers her hand over the Bible. To Kill a Mockingbird. To Kill a Mockingbird is the classic tale of a white lawyer, Atticus Finch, defending a black man, Tom Robinson, falsely accused of sexual assault, with the victim in this case being Myella Ule. It's ultimately implied that Myella lied about the event rather than publicly admit that she willingly kissed a black man. Yet Tom is ultimately found guilty regardless and killed during his transfer to prison. And while we as an audience are evidently on Tom's side from the jump, there's a slight early tell that Myella isn't being honest when she's called to testify against him in court. As she takes the stand and places her hand on the Bible to swear her oath, note that she actually hovers her hand above the Bible rather than putting her hand firmly on it, effectively making it an invalid oath and indicating that she knows precisely what she's doing, being intentionally dishonest. Number 5. Woody's Roundup rumbles Stinky Pete. Toy Story 2. Toy Story 2's primary antagonist ends up being Stinky Pete the Prospector, who attempts to convince Woody to stay with him by revealing that the Woody's Roundup TV show was cancelled on a cliffhanger, as Woody and Bullseye leapt the Grand Canyon to rescue Jessie and Pete. According to Pete, the cliffhanger was never resolved due to kids losing interest in cowboys at the onset of the space race. Ultimately, Pete attempts to stop Woody, Jessie and Bullseye from leaving at the end of the movie, having grown hateful of children and jealous of toys that, unlike him, have been played with. And there's a very sneaky nod to Pete's impending heel turn. When Buzz arrives at Al's apartment to try and persuade him to come home, Woody refuses. But if you listen closely at the end of the scene, you can hear an episode of Woody's Roundup playing in the background. We hear Jessie say, "I knew you'd make it," implying that this is the episode after the cliffhanger, upon which Woody's Roundup was supposedly cancelled. And so it's clear that Pete was lying through his teeth to Woody and company about the show's cancellation in order to keep them from leaving. The utter swine. Number 4. Vesper raises her eyebrows. Casino Royale. Now, credit to Redditor YT_ambush_anime for seemingly coming up with this one entirely by themselves, and it does ensure that you'll never watch Casino Royale quite the same way again. It's evidently revealed that James Bond's colleague and later lover Vesper has betrayed him in an attempt to save her boyfriend who has been taken hostage, as leads to her death at the end of the movie. But there are some extremely subtle earlier indications that Vesper isn't a stone-cold pillar of integrity. After Bond wins the focal card game and enjoys dinner with Vesper, he points out that she's wearing an Algerian love knot necklace. Evidently, this necklace was given to Vesper by her aforementioned French-Algerian boyfriend, but in an attempt to throw Bond off any possible scent, she simply raises her eyebrows high and says, "Really? I thought it was just something pretty." Bond's smart enough to catch the lie though, noting that somebody definitely gave the necklace to her. Vesper repeats this tale later at the very end of the film, when Bond mentions that M will be kept busy chasing who he believes to be a traitor. But Vesper, the real traitor, and well aware that Mattis is innocent, again raises her eyebrows high and says, "Mattis?" before feigning surprise at his complicity. It's especially fitting given that moments later, Bond says that Vesper doesn't have a tell, and that's probably why he loves her. Talk about a blind spot, right? Number 3. S.H.I.E.L.D. in the shadow of Watergate. Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Captain America, the Winter Soldier's big twist is that the peacekeeping organization S.H.I.E.L.D. has actually been secretly infiltrated by the terrorist organization Hydra for decades. More to the point, senior S.H.I.E.L.D. official Alexander Pierce is ultimately revealed to be Hydra's covert leader and the movie's primary antagonist. Yet there's one sneaky piece of visual shorthand earlier on in the film which indicates that S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't quite what it seems, and that Pierce just might not be telling the truth. You see, moments before Cap has his famous elevator fight at S.H.I.E.L.D. HQ and learns about the conspiracy, an exterior shot frames the HQ in front of an infamous piece of Washington, D.C. architecture. The curved buildings in the background are part of the Watergate complex, where of course the Watergate scandal originated in 1972 and ultimately resulted in the collapse of Richard Nixon's presidency. It's a neat sliver of visual storytelling that should give eagle-eyed, politically astute audience members a hint that S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't quite the unambiguous force for good that it appears to be. Number 2. John Hammond did actually spare expenses. Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park's creator John Hammond will forever be best remembered for the widely parroted claim that he spared no expense building the park, despite the rest of the movie basically suggesting otherwise, from the island's clear lack of infrastructure to not giving Dennis a damn raise. But there's a sign incredibly earlier on in the film which points to the fact that Hammond is basically talking out of his arse. Hammond has a walking stick which is topped with a hunk of amber that contains one of the mosquitoes from which dinosaur DNA was apparently extracted. Yet any mosquito expert out there will surely appreciate that the one on top of Hammond's stick is an elephant mosquito, which famously don't suck blood and so couldn't contain the dino DNA. You can consider it a filmmaking mistake if you want, or that Spielberg simply chose a larger breed of mosquito that would appear more visible on camera, but it just makes too much sense that Hammond wouldn't want to place one of his valuable prehistoric mosquitoes inside of a walking stick. Instead, Hammond spared expense, deliberately using a fundamentally useless elephant mosquito instead, while assuming that nobody would ever recognize the difference and challenge him on it. All the same, it's an early sign that Hammond isn't quite as genuine as he first seems. And number 1, the cross-fingered statues, the invention of lying. While we as the audience know that protagonist Mark Bellison is lying throughout the invention of lying, the movie nevertheless has a lot of fun visually signposting the increasingly ridiculous slew of bullshit that he deploys in order to enrich himself. Notably, Mark writes an absurd screenplay about aliens invading Earth in the 14th century, and because fiction doesn't exist in this universe and Mark is the only person capable of lying, it's ultimately accepted as an historical piece of work. But during the scene where Mark pitches the script to executive Anthony James, look behind Mark and you'll see 2 golden awards in Anthony's office. And if you look closer, they've both got their fingers crossed, which is of course typical visual shorthand for a character lying. Again, we as the audience flat out know that Mark is lying in this scene and throughout the movie, but it's a cute little nod that you probably missed all the same.